A lot of people are talking about the deadline that the Trump administration gave to Iran to either open up shipping lanes in the Straits of Hormuz, or he was going to start attacking infrastructure within their country, and more specifically, power plants and bridges. I just recently saw a tweet that this administration put out. I'll put that up on the screen right here, and you can take a look at it. But he was basically doubling down on his threats to start attacking infrastructure by 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight if the straits were not open. When war occurs, it impacts everyone across the globe. We live in a connected global society now. So when things happen in pockets throughout the world, everybody across the globe is going to be impacted. So in today's video, I wanted to just give my thoughts on what could potentially happen from an economic perspective if this administration follows through with its threats to start hitting infrastructure. And the very first thing that comes to my mind is the stock market. Let's face it, the market right now is at a tipping point. And since this war began, the market has been selling off. When the VIX increases, institutional investors, big investors, start to get out of riskier investments. And that could cause retail investors, people like you and I, to start selling our positions, which is ultimately going to drive the market down. There's a potential for a lot of selling to start occurring in the market, pushing that down even further and further, which ultimately would be a nightmare for the Fed. This Fed has been working diligently over the past few years to not only get inflation under control, but to actually start to lowering it. And it has been lower. So much so that the Fed has started to cut rates. Now for 2026, they pulled back on some of the rate cuts that a lot of people thought could potentially be coming. But if inflation starts to tick back up, those rate cuts are gone. In fact, we could potentially see rates increase. The next part of the economy that I think will start to feel the impact of this, if it already hasn't, are companies like UPS, FedEx, American Airlines, Delta, cruise companies, any of those companies where their prices fluctuate with the cost of fuel are really going to be impacted, and their margins are going to start to evaporate, which means that flight that you were able to take from New York to Miami that used to be $800, now that flight is going to be much more than that. And then if we flip over into discretionary spending, so companies like Amazon, Target, Walmart, they are going to have to start raising their prices if it costs them more money to actually have their products shipped to their warehouses. See, there's a cascading domino effect that will occur across the entire economy because our economy in the US is built on fuel. When prices of fuel increases, it increases everything across the board because we don't do a lot of manufacturing in this country. We're a service-oriented country. All of these things start to get much more expensive when the cost of oil increases. I also believe that the AI space and the overall technology space is vulnerable right now because if interest rates don't continue to drop, if inflation starts to tick back up, these things directly impact those sectors of the economy. So much so, companies will start to pull back on research and development and borrowing money to actually create innovative products. And if companies are no longer willing to invest in building out their infrastructure to be able to create more products, then that ultimately impacts those communities as well. And then of course, the everyday consumer, you and I, it's gonna cost us much more money to fill up our gas tanks if this war continues and actually escalates to new heights. All right, so now I want to talk about a few sectors that could potentially see an increase in their stock prices as this war starts to ratchet up. And the first place that I'll focus on is aerospace and defense. So a lot of these companies are going to start to see an influx in investment dollars from retail and institutional investors, as well as from governments around the world, more specifically the US government, as they're trying to get more products, whether that's vehicles, radar systems, missiles, missile defense, you name it. A lot of companies in this sector are going to start to see a major increase in funding within their companies. So I think of companies like Boeing, Palantir, for example. Companies like that, I think, are primed to potentially see an increase in their stock prices as this war starts to ratchet up. The energy sector is primed to see a massive increase in revenue. If you think of companies like Exxon and Chevron, they actually benefit when the price of oil continues to climb. In the commodity sector, I think that gold and silver may start to tick back up because a lot of people view gold as a hedge against inflation as well as global chaos. The 8 p.m. deadline that this administration gave to Iran is fast approaching. And to be completely honest with you, I have no idea whether or not they will follow through with those threats that they gave, or if some type of deal can be made. My hope is that a deal can be made and this could all be called off and we can start working towards a ceasefire in that area to get people back to as close to normal as possible. I know that no one can get back to normal in times of war. I wanted to make this video to spread awareness, especially to the newer investors that have been investing for a year or less, that if the market starts to pull back because this conflict goes up another level, don't panic sell, especially if you've got positions in companies that are blue chip companies or solid index funds that will bounce back. But we could be in for some massive selling across the market, and you need to be prepared for that. So based on everything that's going on right now, where do you think the best place to park cash right now? Is it investing in index funds, investing in a particular company, or is it going to cash and waiting to see what happens? Leave a comment down below and let me know.